This is Seattle Citymakers, and I'm your host, Jon Scholes. Welcome to episode 9, and I hope you'll forgive my voice. It's a little ragged. COVID did finally find me after 2 or so years. Feeling okay and feeling really grateful and thankful for the access to vaccines that we have and all the over-the-counter cold medicine that I've been taking. I find that if I take everything that's in the medicine cabinet, I feel quite all right, and I'm getting through this. And we are not going to let this virus knock us off our game. The show must go on, and we're here to bring you episode 9. And in episode 9, I sit down, virtually at least, with Beth Knox, the president of the Seattle Sports Commission. Beth has had a 30-year career in special events as a producer and consultant in the sports and live entertainment and events industry here in Seattle. Previously had a 10-year career leading Seafair. She brought the Special Olympics to Seattle in 2018 and has had her hand in all sorts of large events across our city, from the Seahawks Super Bowl victory parade in 2014 to resurrecting the 4th of July fireworks show in 2013. She helped with the Sounders MLS Championship Cup March and Rally in 2016 and 19. And is just an incredible leader in the events and sports and entertainment space in our city. And we talk about this moment that we're at here in the city of Seattle around sports and the importance of sports to the renewal and recovery of downtown. It's been so great to see in-person sporting events back. And of course, the home opener in the Mariners game was just electric. And the crowds have been great at T-Mobile. And concluding the inaugural Kraken season over at Climate Pledge. And soon the Seattle Storm will take the court in that beautiful facility, and so much more. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Beth Knox, president of the Seattle Sports Commission. Well, thanks, Beth. Thanks for joining me on Seattle Citymakers. Thanks for doing this virtually. Like I said, I'd much rather be there in person, and I'm bummed I'm not going to be at the match with you and 60,000+ other people tonight.
I know, same here. It's exciting to be in the stadium district today.
We're going to have a record crowd at the Sounders Puma game tonight.
Yeah.
Match, I should say.
67,000.
67?
Yeah.
Wow.
Record-setting crowd. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be a zoo down there.
Probably the most people we've had downtown since the MLS Cup for a major sporting event, right?
Yeah, it is. I think that one was just a little over. I think that was closer to 69,000.
Yeah.
But pretty significant here.
Well, that's amazing. I'll be cheering from the couch. For those that aren't familiar with the Sports Commission and the evolution of it over the last couple of years, you've sort of left the parents' house and being under and within the organization of Visit Seattle, and now are an independent entity. Maybe give us the thumbnail on what the Sports Commission does and is.
Sure. So the Sports Commission has a mission of, first of all, making Seattle a world-class sports market. But we focus on 2 primary sectors, I would say. One is to support our sports community, our sports teams, both on the professional side as well as universities. And then the second one is to attract large sporting events to the Seattle region. And so we bid on those events and put on a presentation really that shows why Seattle would be the best host city for that particular event. And then, of course, when those events come here, then it brings not only tremendous economic impact, but it can also really impact our quality of life here. It gives us prestige nationally, internationally. It gives our residents that pride factor of hosting an incredible event, and it allows families to come and enjoy those things. So that's what we do as an organization. Previously, for the last nearly 20 years, the Sports Commission was a department of Visit Seattle. There's clearly a strong connection with tourism, hotel room nights, and all of that that is tied in with what Visit Seattle does and what the Sports Commission works to do. But we'd been talking for some time about separating out as an independent entity. And there's, of course, pros and cons to doing that. But we felt strongly that because we have such a great relationship with our friends at Visit Seattle, and separating out would also provide us more autonomy in pursuing things that maybe weren't directly related to tourism, and also allows us to fundraise independently, which gives us a little more opportunity to explore new ventures for us. So we separated out in March of 2020, which was when I took over the role. And as you all might recall, that was exactly when the pandemic was hitting full stride. And so it was certainly an interesting time to become independent. In many ways, it also was the perfect time for me to hit the pause button on some of our typical activities and instead turn to the leadership of all the pro teams and ask, how can I support you? How can I convene this group together? And that's one of the first things I did was convene a call with not just the pro sports teams leadership, but also representatives from the mayor's office, the county executive's office, and the governor's office. And what started off as a one-time call ended up being a weekly call for the next 2+ years. And it was not only a really efficient way to communicate with each other, with local government. They provide a lot of input on guidelines and restrictions to ensure that they were complying from a safety standpoint, but also allowing fans in. So, and then I would say that the last thing it really did was allow them to share best practices with each other and really serve as a support system for each other. So we continue to do those calls, even though they're monthly now, thankfully. But it's been a good process for us to separate out as an independent now.
Not exactly early on the gig you signed up for to sort of help manage and coordinate how you hold events or don't hold events during a pandemic, but something that you had to lean into.
Exactly.
Immediately on day one, it sounds like.
Yes, it was day one. And like so many, everybody leaned in, right? And I'm just proud of how the sports community showed up for each other through that difficult time.
And your entire career has really been centered around events and sports, the Special Olympics, Seafair, your leadership of Seafair, certainly. What got you into, this line of work generally early on in your career? What drew you to sports and events and parades and all the rest of it?
Well, it's funny. I look back on my childhood and I grew up on a farm in Michigan, and we were always doing some sort of an event. We just didn't really think of it like that back then. We had everything from the float building parties or graduation parties or barn dances, all of that. And when I went to college, it was for public relations and advertising. So back then, events wasn't an industry per se. But when I moved out to Seattle after graduation, my first job was actually at Seafair. And I really didn't know what I was getting into, but it ended up being a perfect fit for me. And was there for 5 years and then went on to other events organizations, such as One Reel doing Bumbershoot and Summer Nights at the Pier and other events. And then came back years later to be the CEO of Seafair. And it was during that time that I really started connecting with the professional sports teams. We were asked by the city and the Seahawks to produce the victory parade when the Seahawks won the Super Bowl. And then that led to producing the MLS Cup parade for the Sounders multiple times. And so really developed strong relationships with the teams at that point. And likewise, when I produced the Special Olympics USA Games, worked very closely with the sports teams during that event. So after Special Olympics, I consulted and, not surprisingly, ended up working with the sports teams. So it wasn't in an intentional path, but it just kept evolving in that direction. So while I was consulting with the different teams, I thoroughly enjoyed that. But I kept thinking, I feel like I'm torn between different clients, and I wish I had that opportunity to work with all the teams, but with a single focus. And voila, then the opportunity came for leading the Seattle Sports Commission, and it was a perfect match.
I love that, from floats on a farm in Michigan to
Right.
a million people in a Seahawks Super Bowl parade on 4th Avenue in downtown Seattle.
Who'd have thought?
Was it that job at Seafair that first drew you out to Seattle? Did you have a connection to the city before that, or did you just say, I want to head west?
I was totally head west, young lady, and that's what I did. My sister was out here first, so I joined her and took about 6 months, but it's so Seattle. I was working for a relative who worked for a gentleman who was a Seafair volunteer. And he said, you should talk to the Seafair president and see if there's an opening there. So very, very typical Seattle of somebody who knows somebody, and got the job after a bit of perseverance following up. And then, it's a small organization, Seafair. So it just so happened that somebody had moved on to another position and an opening came available.
So events stress me out if I'm responsible for them, because there's so many details to remember. And thankfully, we have a lot of good people, and I know you do too, that account for all of those details in the events that take place. Do you have like one event or moment that was the most stressful and challenging and difficult for you in your history, where maybe those details didn't get handled, or there was some variable you had to juggle and react to?
Sure. First of all, there's lots of events that don't go as planned, and those are stressful. And some of it you can mitigate, and some of it is just circumstances. Weather can throw in those monkey wrenches, as well as other circumstances out of your control. But I would say one of the more stressful moments was the time leading up to the opening ceremony for the Special Olympics USA Games. Everything was planned out well, so it wasn't any of that affected it, but there were so many moving parts all at the same time. We had 4,000 Special Olympics athletes making their way from upper campus down to Husky Stadium. We had another several thousand volunteers that were forming a cheer line to welcome them. We were setting up the sponsor area, and there were a couple of mishaps there and some of the sponsor conflicts that can happen. But it was all literally moments before opening ceremony was going to start. And then, one of my key corporate partners who was going to speak hadn't shown up yet. So it's just where you felt like, oh my gosh, how many more problems can I solve in this very short period of time? But pretty soon, in fact, I would add that the clouds were rolling in over Husky Stadium. And I was just thinking, are you kidding me already? And just as it was about to start, I swear those clouds just moved on. It was like it opened up over Husky Stadium. I still had, like, Slick Watts, former Sonics player, legendary Sonics player. He was in the volunteer line coming out into the field with the athletes. And he still talks about it. He said, Beth, it felt like the universe was saying, we have to keep this special for this event. And then it was an awesome opening ceremony.
That's terrific.
At the end of the day. So we got through it. Yeah,
you got through it, as often is the case with these big events. It feels like a sort of a unique moment when it comes to sports in Seattle. I'm sure you feel that as well, just with the, certainly the buzz around the inaugural season of the Kraken and Climate Pledge and the Storm, taking the court there for the first time and having, the Sounders draw 60,000+ fans tonight. How do you sort of look at this moment we're in Seattle with the energy around sports relative to sort of other points in time in our history? This one, maybe it's just me, this one feels special, and there's some, anticipation. We should, note the energy and optimism around our Mariners too. Maybe I think that's a big part of it.
It is, Jon, and I think you've really hit it. It is a special moment. It's kind of magical right now. And I say it's magical because there's excitement, there's this anticipatory energy that is in the air. It doesn't mean that every team is doing perfect or doing phenomenal, but the potential is so high, and there's so much love and pride for these teams that they're not looking at just wins and losses. They're looking at the personalities, the leadership of these teams, the experience that the fans are having, and then it's also what's on the horizon. And there's so much ahead. Not only matches like tonight for the CONCACAF Champions League final, for the Sounders are in. I mean, that's a historic moment. But also you have the MLB All-Star Game coming up next summer, and we have so many other events that are in the bid process right now that will be coming to Seattle. That I think that's part of that energy that we're feeling right now.
And you mentioned the All-Star Game and it's All-Star Week, really. What should we expect there with all the other things that happen around the game? It's been some time since we hosted the All-Star Game. It was, 2001, right? The last time it was
2001.
Here? What can we expect in July of 23 in Seattle?
It's going to be much bigger and different than in 2001. Back then, it was just an all-star game. And as you said, it is a week now. And it will have great family activities as part of an event called Play Ball Park. That will take place in Lumen Field. There will be concerts. There will be celebrity softball tournaments, the home run derby, and then leading up to the actual all-star game itself in T-Mobile Park. So we'll have events on the waterfront throughout the city, as well as at Lumen Field and T-Mobile Park. So lots of opportunities. It's not just about getting a ticket to All-Star Game. It's being part of all of the festivities leading up to that point.
As you noted, you're chasing other bids. A notable one is the World Cup. What can you say about where we're at in the process and when we might know and if we are successful, what that might mean for the city?
Well, I think it's fair to say that the FIFA World Cup is literally the largest event on the planet. And so it's like getting a Super Bowl times 5. But we will know probably in mid-June if Seattle will be hosting tournaments as part of the 2026 World Cup. I would say our prospects are looking, I'm very optimistic about it. There's never a guarantee, but I'm feeling really encouraged at our prospects at this stage. So there are 17 cities that are, I would call semifinalists in this process. And of that 17, 10 cities in the United States will host about 60 matches. I think that if Seattle is fortunate enough to be selected as a host city, then we would have anywhere between 3 and 7 matches that we would host here. We'll have training sites throughout the city, certainly Starfire, the Sounders' new training facility and headquarters down at Long Acres, and other locations that are going to be around the region. And then we'll also host those matches at Lumen Field. So fingers crossed, we are incredibly excited because that is truly an amazing opportunity, not only for the fans here, but for our city and the stature of hosting a World Cup match.
Yeah, it'd be phenomenal. And I know we have other large events coming here. What does sort of the rundown look like as we look out over the horizon?
Well, we are bidding on a WNBA All-Star Game. We're waiting to hear if that would be 24 or 25 for the bid. That would be incredibly exciting. We have already confirmed that we will be hosting next spring the NCAA Women's Regional Basketball Tournament. And then in 25, we will be hosting the men's first and second round basketball tournaments. Both of those events will be at Climate Pledge Arena. So we've got some NCAA events that are already have been awarded, but we've also already begun the bid process for the next cycle. The NCAA does that in 4-year cycles, 4 to 5 years. So we are looking ahead to a women's Final Four in 2027 through 2031. Really looking out, we are in the process of a bid for U.S. to, similar to FIFA World Cup, the U.S. is looking to bid to host a Rugby World Cup, both for men's and women's. And so that would be 2031 and 2033. So there's many others that we are working on in the meanwhile. U.S. Olympic dive trials in 24. That'll be in partnership with the City of Federal Way and the King County Aquatic Center. So just so many great opportunities. And I want to focus also on what I would call those mid-size events, whether that's lacrosse or soccer, or we're actually talking with cricket now. We've got cricket that is going to be coming to the city of Bellevue They'll have a new arena, cricket arena, out at Merrimore Park. So that would be incredible to have a professional cricket team as well as potential tournaments and a World Cup even for cricket is down the line. So lots of fun opportunities and events that we can bring here.
And how does Seattle compare today to some of the markets we're competing with to attract some of these events? I mean, 10 years ago, it was you'd hear, oh, we don't have enough hotel capacity, or some of the ancillary event facilities just aren't big enough. Obviously, we've made a lot of investments there and in other places, light rail, transportation access. How does Seattle stack up, and what are some of these committees and decision makers looking for as they're looking at where to place their event and their dollars?
No, it's a great question. And, number one, they want to be in a city that certainly is appealing to attendees, to the competitors as well as the visitors, which Seattle already has that going for it. They want to know that the city is 100% committed, and that means that it is welcoming and safe and has all of the aspects that makes a city interesting and fun to visit. We also have a city that is right now our mayoral administration in the city of Seattle is very, very committed to supporting events. And I have been so pleased to work with Mayor Harrell and Deputy Mayor Yamaguchi, two individuals who are really interested in doing what it takes to be attractive to these big events. But it also requires funding. And that's probably our weakest link right now. So
these other cities are writing checks.
They're writing checks.
Yeah.
Whether it's the Sports Commission is raising those funds from local government or private contributors, or there are the city is writing a check, or the county or the state. So there's ways to get to that point. But the precedent hasn't been set here. So that's something we need to change, because we won't be competitive if we can't offer a convention center facility at either no cost or very nominal cost. Now, flip side is we do have the hotels here. We have the new convention center that's the expansion that will offer so many more attributes for our city that these events are looking for. So it's the funding that is our weakest link.
And we're super walkable. I loved what the commissioner of baseball said when he was here at the Space Needle and joining you and other city leaders to announce that they were bringing All-Star Week to Seattle. Is, we're here because of the compact downtown, and it's a great fan experience, and people can take the train, stay in a hotel, walk all around, walk to the game, and that's got to be a huge asset for us.
It's a significant factor, John, and we are so fortunate when you think about that you can walk from the stadium district and walk a mile and be in downtown, right in the heart of downtown, and walk down to the waterfront. It's all within 20 to 30 minutes. You can get to your hotels, you can get to light rail. That accessibility is such a major draw for these events that are looking to come to host cities as well as the visitors. So we're really fortunate to have that. And when the FIFA delegation was here in January for their site visit, and they were getting really granular on can you deliver on what you promised? And there was one individual that did exactly what the MLB commissioner said. He said, I want to prove it. I'm going to walk. He said, I'm not going to take the shuttle that you gave me. I'm going to walk from the stadium. And he met us downtown, and he said, oh my gosh, I got here in 20 minutes. This was amazing. So that is a big factor and something we should be proud of and really take advantage of. I'm also so excited about the waterfront development, having that accessibility.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's only going to get better,
Yeah.
Not to sound too boostery, but it's only going to get better,
Right.
that walkability, right?
Exactly right. So it's a big selling factor for us.
And I'm sure, I think you get asked these questions a lot as far as big events that some folks, would love to have here. So I'm gonna ask them to you anyway, even though I think I might know the answers. But a Super Bowl, prospects on it.
Well, certainly we have the capability of hosting a Super Bowl. I think that we've kind of leapfrogged that a little bit with the FIFA World Cup from the standpoint of an event that has international stature. But it's absolutely on the table for a future Super Bowl. We need to develop that relationship with the NFL. And first, I would say, is an NFL draft.
That was going to be my next one, NFL draft.
The Seahawks and the Sports Commission have submitted a letter of interest, is how you start. And then we get put in the pipeline for consideration and then get invited to submit a bid. So that process is underway, and we will keep developing that strong relationship with the NFL.
And then the other question I think you get asked a lot, which I'll ask, is prospects on an NBA team. What do you know, Beth?
Well, so I can tell you that we are completely ready for when the NBA decides that they are ready to expand a team. I mean, we know we have the arena, we have the interest. I would say I think that we need to maybe rebuild some of that interest from the grassroots level up. Nothing wrong with that. And, now that the Storm is playing at the Climate Pledge Arena, like I mentioned earlier, we'll have the women's regional NCAA tournament here next spring. And I'm excited about the opportunity to get more of the youth organizations in the community involved from a basketball standpoint and just start building that so that when Adam Silver says, okay, it's time, we are absolutely ready to hit the play button and move it forward.
In the meantime, we can all enjoy what we've got, including, we haven't mentioned the OL Reign being back in Seattle at Lumen, and which has just been terrific.
It is such an increase of energy to have the OL Reign at Lumen Field, and I hope that people really fully appreciate what it means to have a team that is professional women's soccer at the stature of these players, and they are hugely competitive. And to have them playing at Lumen Field is it's exactly where they should be right now. And it's a great way to see high-level professional women's soccer in a great venue for a relatively low investment. And I would just encourage all of Seattleites to bring your family, bring your friends to a match and really get to enjoy having them here in our city.
Well, thanks for the invitation to the home opener. I had a great time with my daughter, Avery, who's a big soccer fan, and we did dinner in Pioneer Square before, and it's such an easy access to the game, and it was a lot of fun. And I don't think the women flop as much as the men.
They do not,
pick on
thankfully,
the MLS or any other men's leagues, but golly, and that's nice just to see straight up soccer.
Exactly.
So I know you're a listener of the podcast, Beth, which we appreciate. So you're probably ready for this final question. Your perfect Saturday in Seattle. What's the itinerary?
Here's my perfect day. If I can spend some time on a boat and then go to a sporting event, that's ideal for me. I love the ability to take advantage of both the natural elements of Seattle. I've been out here nearly 35 years, and being out on the water is truly a happy place for me. But being in a stadium cheering on our sports teams, that's very Seattleite-esque, and that to me is an ideal day.
You're straddling your Seafair and Sports Commission
exactly.
Experience, right? Well, yeah, I agree with you. I don't think there's a better place to watch sports than in Seattle, and we're so fortunate to have our arenas and our stadiums tucked into the downtown, and it's not they're not out way on the edge of the city surrounded by big parking lots, but it really creates a dynamic experience before and after the game, and it's good for the neighborhood.
It is. And I think it's important to also share with your listeners that Seattle is very fortunate to have, we have 7 professional sports teams where this group now gets together once a month. It was weekly, and they freely share best practices. They cheer each other on sincerely. They commiserate with each other, and you just don't see that in every city. There can be competition, rivalries, and I'm talking the unnecessary rivalries. Our teams are highly competitive, but not with each other, with themselves is how they see it. And that's just something really special that Seattle can be proud of.
Do you think a lot of that was brought on by just the collaboration you helped facilitate and others through the pandemic? Was that kind of a catalytic moment to bring people closer together? It sure feels that that's a new sort of spirit that exists among our sports leadership.
Well, and I think that it was happening in, two here, two there. They were all very friendly with each other. But yes, it was that moment during the pandemic where I could bring them all together. And they just have developed relationships. I know that so many of us did, right, during the pandemic with all those Zoom calls. But they have formed true friendships and that have continued. I just recently pulled a group of 30 representatives from all of our teams and universities to talk about the 50th anniversary of Title IX. And everyone shared, here's our promotion, here's how we're doing it. Sports Commission, we brought together a logo that we are sharing out with all of the teams and universities to use so that we are demonstrating our united factor here in the celebration of it. So it is very Seattleite, Seattle-esque, but I do think that moment of convening was a trigger point.
Yeah, and I think we as fans all benefit from that because it seems like everybody in a good way is sort of raising their game on the fan experience. And we've got so many great sports leaders, the Lywickis and Katie Griggs over at the Mariners, and certainly what the Sounders have created. There's this focus and attention in a really special way on how do we create this very unique Seattle fan experience. And they're doing good work in the community too, together, through their investments in diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so I think we all benefit from that collaboration and that spirit that exists among all of them.
It's so true. And not only did that kind of collaboration take place, but they are equally committed to, especially during the pandemic, they wanted to make sure that they all had comparable policies during COVID so that the fan, it didn't matter if they showed up at Lumen Field or T-Mobile Park or Climate Pledge Arena, that it would be a similar process. And of course, it's not perfect because they all have different systems, but they worked really hard to ensure that the fan wasn't caught off guard and having to wear a mask in one venue but not in another. And that just really speaks to their commitment in ensuring that the fans have a great experience no matter what venue they are going to or what team they're cheering on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know it's a busy afternoon for you ahead of the match and all that's happening over at Lumen. So thank you for taking time today, Beth, and look forward to seeing you soon at an arena or a stadium. And go Sounders.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to be part of the podcast. And I just want to say, Jon, how much I appreciate your leadership in downtown Seattle and working with so many of us to keep our city at the vibrant, healthy level that we know it should be at. And I think we are well on our way. I'm excited for all of the people that are coming to our city this summer.
Same here. And sports are a huge part of our renewal and recovery and getting people back downtown. So a huge part of the fuel to the rocket here of getting going again. So thank you, Beth.
Likewise. Go Sounders as well.
Well, I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Beth Knox. And of course, since Beth and I chatted, the Sounders have brought home the CONCACAF trophy. What a game last week now it was over there at Lumen, and 68,000+ people, a record crowd for that tournament. What a great night for Seattle. What a great night and victory for the club and Sounders fans. I wish I could have been there, but it was a lot of fun to watch it on the couch. And just a terrific victory for our city and the MLS. So this moment we're in sports is a great one for our city and so important to the recovery of small business and bars and restaurants and to support our hotels to get all those sports fans back in the city. And we're so fortunate, as I noted, to have our stadiums and arenas and other facilities tucked so closely to our downtown. It really does a lot to drive a vibrant experience for the neighborhood and so much economic activity and a really great fan experience that begins before the game and continue, late into the evening. It's not just about going to the game and heading home. You can do so much more because of where our facilities are located. So a great few days and a great week in Seattle sports. And congrats again to the Sounders. Before we conclude, I want to make note of the can't miss and must-dos in downtown. And I've got two today. One, get on your calendar for August, the Day In, Day Out Music Festival over at Seattle Center at the Fisher Pavilion there, August 12th through the 14th. Coming up this summer. Great lineup of bands on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. A few of my favorites, The National, Japanese Breakfast, Hooray for the Riff Raff, and many others. And DJ sets by some local artists and some DJs from KEXP. So Day In, Day Out, get your tickets online at dayindayoutfest.com. And the other thing I'll make note of is a great cocktail bar that was closed down for many, many months during the pandemic. Suite 410 over there on Stewart between 4th and 5th in downtown. Suite 410 has recently reopened, a great late night cocktail bar, terrific craft cocktails. They have reopened their doors. Great to see them back in business. So check out Suite 410. Thanks for joining us on episode 9 of Seattle City Makers, presented by the Downtown Seattle Association with support from James Cito and production by Spark Creative.